My name is Rob Langrick, Chief Product Advocate of CFA Institute, and we're here for an exciting first for us, job role focused webinars. Now, the first time I ever heard about the investment consulting industry is a niche industry. It was in 1998 during the Soccer World Cup. There was a referee there called Pierluigi Collina, who some of you may know of. He's actually the world's most famous soccer referee of all time. And I discovered at the time his day job, it was a hobby being a referee in soccer. His day job was an investment consultant. So I'm pretty sure he's probably the world's most famous investment consultant, although one of the panelists may one-up me on that. So anyway, that's how I first kind of learned about investment consulting, and I've been really intrigued in it ever since. So Christina, let's start with you. A senior auditor at a bank wants to know the difference between investment consulting and, let's say, working as a wealth manager or financial advisor.
Investment consulting in general is a broad term, and it can mean many different things to different people. But the way I think about it in terms of those of us on the panel, we are largely working with what we call the professional buyers or allocators and investors. And so in my role as an investment strategist, I'm working with portfolio construction and manager research teams. Those people are generally consist of CFAs, MBAs, PhDs, very sophisticated people who know capital markets and investments and have very specific goals. We're working with them to understand those goals, their desires, their outcomes, and then trying to either show them a strategy that already exists or create a solution with them that serves their needs.
When I think of investment consulting, I think of work with asset owners, fund managers, trustees, with these types of investors. So, and I think that means that the consultants, it's the consultants that work with these asset owners, these types of investors include companies like Mercer and others directly in the same space as us would be Aon, W2W, and then of course you have all the broader professional services consultancies who may have an arm within their consultancy to look at similar areas and similar types of advice, so like PwC, KPMG. But I think that's kind of one section, and probably the section with lots of consultants in it. Others will, investment consultants will work in banks, investment management companies, private consulting companies, investment companies. So there's a large spectrum of how people work. And then some will work independently as well, or in smaller groups of consultants, which is increasingly difficult due to regulation. But there really is a broad spectrum of where people work.
I originally started out my career wanting to be an economist. This was back in the UK, and ultimately, as opportunities opened up, I had the chance to move to the US, work for an organization called Merrill Lynch at the time, and really, as I progressed within Merrill, I got exposed to the asset management side of the business as well as the consulting side of the business, because ultimately, asset managers look to market their products and services to consultants that ultimately vet those products and then put them in client portfolios or assess their appropriateness for client portfolios. So on the asset management side, I had a really good time learning about the capital markets. This was at Merrill Lynch. And then with respect to learning about the capital markets, moved into a credit analyst role. That credit analyst role, I think, is a good example of something that looked really good on paper for me, but ultimately the reality of looking at spreadsheets day in, day out, assessing credits at the municipal level, ultimately was not my calling in life. So blending the background of economics and then blending the background of working in asset management and getting a feel of the bigger picture, consulting really spoke to me at that point. Consulting, I think, is the best of many worlds, where you are an asset allocator, you are speaking with clients and developing very strong relationships, you are a fiduciary and a partner, and you are an investor.
Someone in the treasury function at an S&P 500 company, I won't say which, is asking, what are the key 5 skills needed in investment consulting? And I think they mean technical skills.
First and foremost, it's investment acumen, both in the capital markets, but also a deep understanding of various asset classes and how they behave together. Understanding, like, for instance, in equities, the difference of how, like, growth managers would behave versus value managers, et cetera. It certainly helps to have an expertise in manager due diligence or portfolio analytics and construction, and certainly any tools that those roles typically use. So that could be learning how to run an attribution on FactSet, a little bit more challenging on the fixed income side, but you could use also tools like Morningstar, eVestment, other tools out there like that. You really need excellent communication skills, both written and verbal. I mean, your job at the end of the day is to work with clients, and you really have to be able to communicate your investment strategies well. That also goes along with presentation skills. I mean, there are times you may have to present to a large investment committee or to a board or to other large groups of stakeholders that make a decision here. So certainly that helps.
Knowing the technical detail is enough to be a good investment consultant, but I simply knowing that and not having the soft skills is not enough to be a great investment consultant, in my opinion. So you need those strong communication skills. You need to also put in the effort to know your clients. You have to understand their specific needs and how they like or need to communicate with you. So I think you need to change and adapt to suit your different clients and the different environments. So you'll be delivering similar work potentially, but in very different ways to different clients. And you're the one who has to think about that and think about what works with those clients and what doesn't. And look, there's lots of others. Time management is always a big thing for any consultants. A lot of us are on the clock a lot of the time, problem solving. And I think innovation as well. You have to always be trying to bring the best to your clients. I would say the best investment consulting relationships that I have is where I've built up that relationship where I know I truly am the trusted advisor to my client. They fully trust me, not to always be right, but to always do right by them. And look, it does take a lot of work to build up those relationships.
It actually dawned on me as you were all talking that none of you started in investment consulting. So actually, Christine, there was someone from a Dutch asset management firm who actually asked if his or her ultimate goal is to be an investment consultant, what's the best starting point? So I'm guessing this will be very useful for students on the call, undergraduates. So what should their first job be if their second job, desired job, is investment consulting?
I can really only touch on my personal experience, but I did start out in finance overall. I started out as a fund accountant, and I have to tell you, like, no offense to any fund accountants out there, but after about 9 months, I was like, I've had enough. I can do this with my eyes closed. And this is when we did it by pen and paper on a ledger. This wasn't even in a computer. So it was a good starting point though. And that gave me the opportunity to go apply for another job within the same company and earn that role. And so that was the steady progression of my career that finally landed me at the job at Smith Barney, which is now Morgan Stanley. And that was as a manager research analyst. And that really was where the most relevant job I have to the job I have today. And that's really where I learned the asset management industry. In that role, I was able to sit down with portfolio managers, CIOs, CEOs, talk to the brightest minds in investing, and really learn all the different asset classes and how these investors invest it, and form opinions on what works and what doesn't work, et cetera. That also gave me the opportunity to work on my presentation skills and how I communicate it with the investment committee that I worked with. And then that eventually, propelled me to go and get my CFA designation as well. And so I think having that steady progression in my career, moving into different areas, being comfortable with the uncomfortable and growing is what ultimately landed me in the position that I am in today.
There are lots, a lot of consultancies do bring in people, but you're starting to help with the basic work. And then I suppose we bring people in, you understand their skills and you see if you can develop them into the right area within investment consulting within our business. Say similar to Christina, my first role, I was lucky enough to join. Well, I joined in a middle office role, and then moved into a different role from that. I didn't move in the role that I wanted to do forever. I moved up into the role that I was aiming at. So look, I think the reality is that entry level roles, when they exist, they probably involve more basic work than people would want to do in reality when they think about their ideal job. But I would always encourage people to take the opportunity that's there, use it to learn from the people around them, absorb it all, and to try to develop into being getting the career that they want, but yeah, using it as an opportunity rather than, there's nothing drives me mad more than people saying, well, I didn't go to college for 5 years to sit here and do this job. You have to learn your skill, you have to work your way up. So when those opportunities come up, I think it's for people to use it positively, get that experience. And if you do it well and do it with a positive attitude, opportunities will open for you.
There are many CFA program candidates actually on this call, and there's actually a ratings analyst of BNP Paribas who is wondering how the CFA program helps break into or perform in investment consulting. So you're all CFA charter holders. Christine, what are your thoughts on that question?
It was incredibly helpful to my career to obtain my CFA. Certainly, I mentioned I did the MBA first, and frankly, I did that first because I thought that would be easier in my mind, because it was going to a classroom and having like deadlines imposed on me rather than the self-discipline that the CFA program requires. And I honestly questioned whether I could do that or not. And then as I progressed in my career, I thought, I really probably need the CFA designation if I want to move higher in my career and achieve what I wanted to achieve. So, and that certainly opened up doors for me. And frankly, with each progression of, the MBA to the CFA, it certainly opened up higher doors that wouldn't otherwise be available to me. And then in the salary goes along with that as well.
The CFA program, in my opinion, covers all the technical areas that you need for investment consulting, or gives you the best starting point for that. Yeah, as was the case for Christina, most people who did it, the CFA was the hardest thing I've done in my career. And look, when you're doing it, you really hope it'll matter in future. I did it before I became an investment consultant, but it changed the course of my career. It got me my first role in portfolio management as an analyst. And even now, it's still recognized by clients. I won a large tender a couple of years ago, and rather than commenting on my work experience and all the other things that I've done, the person who's now my client subsequently mentioned how highly he ranked my CFA qualification. Look, at Mercer, we hire a lot of actuaries and CFA charter holders, so it certainly helped to have that on my CV coming into Mercer, and coming from outside the industry into investment consulting. It established my credentials.
A lot of amazing things. Besides the trauma that both Christine and Katrina mentioned, it's done a world of good. It still does. So taking the exam first and foremost, I did it when I was in asset management. That allowed me point blank to get the promotions, the exposure, and the projects that I wanted to be on. It was a way just to equalize many conversations at the table. So from an asset management standpoint, it helped me. From an investment consulting standpoint, it helped me move from asset management to investment consulting. And then as an investment consultant, the more you work with different clients, there's different aspects of the CFA program that are just an amazing way to kind of bring everyone back to. So I always think about our job as relationship managers, as fiduciaries. The ethics component of the CFA program, it is head and shoulders above, I think, anything else that you could get in the industry. It really gives you a framework, and it ingrains a way of looking at the world that helps you, helps the clients, helps the managers, helps the beneficiaries. It's a global passport. Ultimately, wherever you are in the globe, anyone across that globe that's a serious investment professional knows what the CFA is. It's done a lot for me. Cannot speak more highly of a designation. It's phenomenal. Please study. Everyone gets through it if they put the time into it. And again, a big fan of the CFA.